I am Colonel Ashley Miller, and after 5 years stationed overseas, today marked my reunion with a family I barely recognize. I stepped into the grand ballroom of Chateau Royal, my navy blue A-line gown whispering with every stride. Crystal chandeliers fractured light across polished marble floors, and a soft breeze of jasmine drifted through open French windows. Music from a grand piano rippled across the room as 70 impeccably dressed guests turned their heads, curious at my unexpected arrival. I smoothed the silhouette of my gown and spotted Brandon Carter handing Brittany Miller a delicate ivory box wrapped in burgundy satin. Its contents whispered to be worth $15,000. My heart fluttered against the satin bodice, a familiar tightening clenching my chest. 5 years I spent away. 5 years they assumed I'd forgotten them. The click of my Manolo Blahnik heels echoed like a countdown, each step a reminder of letters unread, conversations abandoned, and the family portrait I once tore in anger. A trembling voice from the head table called, "Ashley, welcome home." For a heartbeat I hesitated, then I squared my shoulders, lifted my chin, and asked myself, could I face the past I abandoned without shattering this fragile peace? I am Colonel Ashley Miller, and my route traced back to a humble ranch house just outside Amarillo, Texas. Long before I first donned fatigues, I was the older of 2 daughters born to Jonathan and Catherine Miller. Our home sat on a patch of land where bluebonnets carpeted the fields each spring, and the golden sun dipped low enough to set fire to the horizon in autumn. Inside, the kitchen smelled of fresh-baked pecan pie and strong coffee, because my mother thrived on early mornings and large batches. My sister Brittany, 2 years my junior, would tumble into those mornings in mismatched socks, hair still asleep, and slide into the wooden high chair I'd outgrown years before. At age 6, I learned my first lesson about responsibility. Dad handed me a crisp $20 bill after teaching me how to pour feed into the silo. "Spend it on something you learn from," he said in his gentle drawl. I spent that money on library books about animals, pony care manuals, spotting guides for migratory birds, anything I could devour before bedtime. By 13, I was teaching myself computer basics from discarded tech magazines, often staying up late at Catherine's insistence that I get enough sleep. She always tucked me in with the same words, "Big dreams need resting hearts." When I turned 16, I parlayed my self-taught skills into a small side business. Each Saturday morning, I'd pedal my bike 2 miles into town, knock on neighbors' doors, and repair battered laptops for a $50.00 flat fee. After covering parts, I tucked at least $20.00 into my leather coin purse. At the end of each month, I'd count out the funds and deposit them in my savings jar, an old ball mason jar with Ashley's future scrawled in black marker. By graduation, the jar held nearly $2,000.00, enough for me to buy my first set of sterling dog tags engraved A. Miller. I wore them to my ROTC commissioning at Texas A&M as a symbol of my journey from farm fields to military drill. The ROTC scholarship covered full tuition, plus a monthly stipend of about $1,200.00. Often, I shared that with Brittany. $50.00 here for a new scrapbook, $75.00 there for point shoes she'd auditioned for. In return, she sent me scrapbooks bursting with ticket stubs from county fairs, Polaroids of us in matching denim jackets, and handwritten notes that smelled faintly of lavender. One Polaroid stands out, her beaming smile as she held her acceptance letter to the University of Houston's architecture program. I clipped that photo to the inside of my bunk locker, a reminder that our dreams were entwined. Upon commissioning as a second lieutenant, my base pay started at about $42,000, 0 cents per year. With each promotion, my pay scaled up $61,000, 0 cents as a captain, $78,000, 0 cents as a lieutenant colonel, and nearing $85,000, 0 cents as a full colonel. Those numbers, once a distant dream jarred into glass, became line items I scrutinized each month. Could I afford the $1,200 0 cents flight to surprise Brittany on her birthday? Would sending an extra $500 0 cents to my parents for the ranch's over-repairs derail my own savings goals? Every dollar felt like a vote of confidence cast back home. Yet money was only one ledger. I also balanced an emotional ledger written in ink and postage stamps. I kept dozens of letters in a mahogany chest in my childhood bedroom, handwritten pages sealed with floral-scented wax. In them, Brittany recounting her first heartbreak over a boy named Jacob, her thrill when she sold her first sculpture for $200, sheer sense at a high school showcase, and the worried softness in her handwriting when Dad suffered a mild heart attack. Those letters were my lifeline in remote deployments, from the humidity of Fort Bragg winters to the dust-choked sunsets of Kandahar. After each mission, I'd bring home souvenirs. A carved wooden bird from an Afghan market, a hand-woven scarf from a local artisan, and always fresh letters. Our parents shared evenly in their pride. During family dinners, rare in my busy schedule, but treasured the table filled with statistics, mileage on my latest deployment, election year politics that shaped defense budget, and the cost breakdown of renovating the rancher's main barn for the annual county fair. But even the strongest bonds fray when left unattended. My weekly 2-minute calls with Brittany became rushed, voices clipping off mid-sentence as duty called me away. Letters slowed to monthly postcards stamped with distant airmail marks. Catherine's update shifted from detailed recipes, "Try adding a pinch more rosemary," to a brief, "All's well here." Dad's voice on voicemail wavered, "Let us know when you can," before fading out. I missed Brittany's birthday recital, citing emergency mission orders. I arrived at Thanksgiving to an empty chair and a plate of lukewarm turkey. The knot in my chest tightened every time I saw her photograph propped on the mantel, reminding me of the distance I'd carved with ambition. Looking back, those early years were the scaffolding of my identity, taught by the slow drip of faith, sacrifice, and love. I was the protector, firm, focused, and often far from home. Britain was the artist, intuitive, expressive, and always there in spirit. Our parents' steadfast anchors tried to hold us together even as we drifted apart. And though I excelled under crisp uniforms and military precision, my heart remained stitched to a small Texan homestead, where a young girl once counted pennies in a mason jar, dreaming of horizons beyond the horizon. I am Colonel Ashley Miller, returning now to that precarious emotional ledger I'd once balanced so carefully. In the years following my promotion to lieutenant colonel, I prided myself on precision down to the minute I spent on calls home. Yet duty's demands grew relentless. What began as a 2-minute check-in every Tuesday night slipped to bi-weekly, then monthly. I'd call in between classified briefings, my voice clipped and professional. "Yes, Mom, I received your letter." "No, I can't come for Thanksgiving, but I'll send the turkey recipe." On one March evening, I opened my inbox to find a terse email from Britain's account. Subject: "Sorry, sis body, thought you were busy. We didn't expect you." No greeting. No signature. Just a door slammed shut in digital form. My chest tightened. I stared at that message for several minutes, the glow of the screen reflecting my confusion. 2 days earlier, I'd authorized a $10,000, 0 cents, family hardship loan to cover necessary repairs on the old joint account at Amarillo Federal. Noting barn restoration in the memo. Yet I'd received no acknowledgement, and now this email felt like a rebuke. The first domino fell a week later. I logged into my personal bank portal to confirm the outgoing transfer, and there it was. 10,000 USD in stark red type. Beneath it, a string of microtransactions, $25.50 at a local feed store, $12.99 on ebooks for Brittany, and a perplexing 150 USD labeled barn butter. I frowned, suspecting a type or worse, fraud. I screenshot the statement and emailed Catherine, copying Jonathan. Mom, can you confirm these charges? I don't recognize barn butter. Her reply came 2 hours later, brief and defensive. Ash, stop micromanaging. We've got it under control. Her words landed like a slap. I replayed the times I'd intervened, reallocating family funds, drafting budgets to keep the ranch afloat. Each intervention had been met with relief until now. The calm partnership I'd believed existed felt fractured. Around this time, I noticed a curious omission in my mailbox: the embossed pale blue envelope I'd grown accustomed to seeing from Brittany each month. No scrapbook update, no lavender-scented letter, no check tucked inside. Instead, I found a glossy invitation to her wedding with Brandon Carter, addressed to the Miller family, omitting my name entirely. My breath caught. From my vantage point behind the head table at the engagement party, I'd watched her sign that guest book, leaving a space instead of writing Aunt Ashley. The omission stung, but I chalked it up to oversight. Today, it felt deliberate. At 3:17 a.m. Bangkok time, I called Jonathan despite knowing he was likely asleep on the ranch's sagging sofa after another 12-hour day. His voice, groggy yet steady, tried to reassure me. Ash, it's just stress. Your sister's under pressure. Weddings cost money. But I saw the toll in his words. His tone implied frustration, an unspoken question. Why can't you just be here? I offered to send more funds, but he declined. We'll manage, he said, and hung up. The cumulative weight of these moments became impossible to ignore. My weekly sit-ups and morning runs, a ritual to diffuse tension, felt hollow. Even my uniform, once crisp and comforting, seemed scratchy. I slipped off my rank insignia on my blouse that morning and stared at my reflection in the locker-room mirror. The woman staring back wore a mask of composure, but behind her eyes I saw doubt. Then came the whisper campaign. At a joint family and friends gathering to celebrate Brittany's upcoming bridal shower, I overheard two of her bridesmaids, girls I'd known since middle school, exchange conspiratorial glances. One murmured, "I heard Ashley pulled funds right before Mom and Dad needed them for the barn. People are saying she's been meddling in family business from across the world." The other nodded. "And she only visits when she wants something, like that $20,000 0-cents college fundraiser. Always taking, never giving." I froze, clutching my champagne flute so tightly that my knuckles whitened. The rumors stung more than any formal reprimand. My uniform would have been code of honor here. Among those who knew me best, I was reduced to a meddler, an absentee big sister with a ledger of red ink against her name. Later that night, Britton confronted me in the foyer of their parents' house. She stood under a single porcelain lamp, framed by dusty family portraits. Her eyes were rimmed with tiredness, her lips pressed into a thin line. "Ashley, why did you send those letters at all if you never meant to come home? Why did you funnel money through banks we can't track?" Her voice quivered, not with anger, but hurt. I opened my mouth, throat closing. The gap between us suddenly yawned wide, the ambitious soldier I'd become versus the little sister she'd always known. I exhaled slowly, feeling the first true tremor of insecurity in years. I was trying to help, I whispered. I thought, but the words felt inadequate. They rang hollow against the weight of unspoken grievances. And in that moment, I realized these were the first authentic cracks in my armor, not in Afghanistan but here, in the heart of my family's sanctuary. The indicators had all been there: the curt email, the tainted bank statement, the unspoken whispers at a bridal shower, the missing invitation, and I dismissed them as stress, distance, miscommunication. Now, as I stood under that same chandelier I'd admired during my entrance months ago, I understood that proximity had made all the difference. I was no longer far enough away to excuse my absence, nor close enough to bridge the widening chasm. It was the first undeniable sign that something precious had been lost, and that reclaiming it would demand more than funds or letters. It would require raw, unguarded confrontation. I remember the moment with crystal clarity, the sudden hush that fell over the ballroom when Brittany rose from her seat at the head table. The champagne flutes, each priced at $85 apiece, paused inches from lips. 70 guests, adorned in tuxedos and gowns, swiveled in unison as Brittany cleared her throat. I, Colonel Ashley Miller, still stood near the back, my tailored navy blue sheath dress pressed to every contour, heart pounding beneath its satin layer. "Ladies and gentlemen," Brittany began, her voice tremulous but determined. "There's something important I need to share about Ashley," she pointed, and the MJ Venice Hughes, in a silver sequined gown, stepped forward with a microphone in hand. The soft click of her stiletto heels on the marble floor echoed like a gunshot. Vanessa's voice, practiced and bright, rang out, "Colonel Miller, care to explain your recent financial maneuverings with the Miller Family Fund?" She raised an eyebrow over oversized tortoiseshell frames, directing all attention toward me. My palms went slick, and I felt the air in my lungs tighten. Brittany continued, "Just days before we signed the contract with Chateau Royale, our deposit was $20,000. Ashley withdrew that exact amount from our joint account without warning." A collective gasp swept the room. The orchestra's strings faltered, then resumed a tentative trill in the background. I searched Brittany's eyes, both pleading and resolute. I had indeed moved $20,000, 0 cents, USD, out of the Miller Family Reserve Funds, earmarked for the venue, depositing it to an emergency relief fund for a humanitarian mission I commanded overseas. In my mind, it was a noble cause. In theirs, it was betrayal. I'd left a paper trail of bank transfers, mission support, AMF, but the memo line mattered little in that moment. A bridesmaid, whom I'd trained as a junior cadet, whispered to her neighbor, "I can't believe she did that." Another muttered, "I thought she didn't care about the ranch anymore." The murmurs coalesced into a low roar of judgment. I felt as if invisible needles were pricking my skin, each accusation a tiny wound. "Brittany," I began, voice steady though my throat burned, "I'm sorry you had to hear about it this way, but those funds," my words dissolved under the weight of 50 pairs of expectant eyes. The menu cards in front of each guest listed a 5-course tasting dinner, $120, 0 cents per plate, and floral arrangements budgeted at $4,500, 0 cents per plate. Their investment in this celebration felt trivial compared to the wrath in Brittany's gaze. Vanessa crouched slightly, microphone aimed at my lips. "You have the floor, Colonel." I inhaled, recalling all the nights I spent drafting budgets by the glow of a tactical lamp. I rerouted the money because our compound in Helmand Province was compromised. We needed immediate funding for medical supplies, bandages, antibiotics, water purifiers. A delay could have cost lives. My uniformed instincts urged me to recite facts and figures: 500 liters of potable water, 1,200 antibiotic kits, a total cost of $19,874.00, sourced within 24 hours. But this was my family's celebration, and they heard only dollar signs. Someone snapped a photo with a smartphone. The flash stung my eyes. I glanced. Dozens of screens pointed at me like lances. In an instant, I became both spectacle and suspect. Brittany folded her arms, tears pooling in her eyes. I wondered if she recognized how fiercely I loved her, how every heartbeat in that duel between duty and family pounded for her safety too. I managed to steady myself. I planned to replenish the funds immediately with my personal savings. $25,000.00 I'd set aside for educational grants for local veterans. I thought a personal check would smooth this over before the deposit deadline. I apologized for not communicating Spartacus' name. If Britton's voice rang out, cold and controlled. "Come out occasionally. You've spent 5 years communicating nothing but memos and bank transfers. You've missed birthdays, recitals, Christmas mornings. And now you call your absence duty?" Her words seemed to shatter crystal chandeliers above us. Droplets of light fractured as they fell. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of each accusation. In that moment, I truly understood the chasm I'd excavated between us. My logical, military mind, trained to compartmentalize objectives, had forgotten that family required more than transactional support. It required presence. Vanessa tapped her microphone twice. "Colonel Miller, would you like to step outside for a private discussion?" It was a gracious offer, but I nodded curtly and took a single step back, the silk lining of my dress brushing the host's table. The assembled guests parted, creating a narrow pathway. I walked through, head held high despite the ache in my chest. Outside the ballroom doors, I found fresh air prickling my skin, the night sky stretching endlessly overhead. Vanessa handed me a folded piece of paper. "Brittany's formal request to have you removed from all family financial accounts," she whispered. The weight of the document in my hand felt heavier than any metal. I looked back at the glowing doors, hearing Britton's voice echo, "We don't want betrayal in our family." The word reverberated betrayal, and I tasted its bitterness. It wasn't just about money. It was about trust, about the promise that sisters once bonded by scraped knees and midnight giggles would stand together. Minutes passed, or was it seconds, before I exhaled the breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Inside, music had resumed, a mournful waltz that struck each heart like a lament. I folded the letter and tucked it into the hidden pocket of my gown, the one small bastion of security I had left. As I re-entered the ballroom, I heard Catherine's gasp, and Jonathan's pained whisper. "Actually, my mother's gown, a soft champagne silk, glowed under the lights." She reached for my hand, trembling. She didn't know whether to comfort me or scold me, so she held my hand and we both stood still. Brittany sank back into her chair, tears freely flowing now. I took a tentative step toward her. The photographers resumed their flash, but this time I met Brittany's gaze. In that electric moment, I saw her pain mirrored mine, a pain born of love and misunderstanding. "Britt," I whispered, voice breaking, "I never wanted to hurt you." Her reply was barely audible, but it cut deeper than any accusation. "Then show me." And in that collapse of pride and protocol, I realized that this family drama, more complex than any military operation, required me to disarm, to step out of the colonel's rigid armor, and to offer the one currency I hadn't considered: apology and openness. I am Colonel Ashley Miller, but at that moment I felt anything but composed. I retreated to the suite just off the ballroom, room 1204, overlooking manicured hedges drenched in moonlight, and closed the door behind me. The hallway carpet muffled my footsteps, but inside I could hear my heart hammering against my ribs like a war drum. I collapsed onto the edge of the king-sized bed, uniform heels clacking against the hardwood floor. The weight of 5 years overseas pressed down on me as heavily as my dress's satin skirt. 5 years of 60 strategic briefings, 60 diplomatic meetings, 60 nights spent in makeshift tents under alien skies, and 0 trips home for birthdays, graduations, or Christmas mornings. Each statistic gnawed at my insides like rust eating through steel. I found the crystal wine glass sitting on a lacquered side table left over from the reception, still holding a quarter bottle of the Chateau Monet Red I'd sipped earlier. The tag read $120, 0 cents USD, per glass. I picked it up, fingertips trembling around the stem. As I brought it to my lips, the rich tannins burned down my throat but wouldn't fill the emptiness inside. I stood, lifted the glass higher than I had ever raised a glass in celebration, and let it crash onto the marble bathroom floor. The sound was deafening, a shatter that echoed through the suite and into my chest. Deep red splashed across the cool stone like spilled ink, each fragment of glass glittering under the recessed lighting. Tears I hadn't allowed myself in the ballroom finally slipped free. I buried my face in my hands, the cold linoleum biting through my fingertips. "What have I done?" I whispered to the empty room. My shoulders shook. The colonel, the disciplined officer trained never to break, was now reduced to this. A woman trembling among shards of once luxury crystal. I stumbled toward the curtained window. Beyond it, the city lights of Bangkok glittered like distant stars. A late summer breeze sifted through the narrow gap in the pane, carrying with it the scent of jasmine and fatigue. I peeled back the heavy drapes and saw the neon-flooded skyline. I thought about Helena, my nurse in Kandahar, whose arm I'd held as she died, about the children in the refugee camp who smiled when I handed them bottled water. I had saved lives, orchestrated peace talks, commanded teams, yet I felt powerless to save myself. I sank to the floor, legs folded beneath me, and closed my eyes. The visions came unbidden: Britain's tear-stained face at the head table, Jonathan's clenched jaw, Catherine's quivering lips as she muttered Ashley under her breath. I saw their confusion morph into betrayal, then pity. I saw myself standing alone in a crowd of familiar faces, a stranger in my own family's story. A single tear traced a path down my cheek. I had traded intimacy for distance, love for orders. I had believed that duty would fill the void, but duty did not tuck me in at night, did not braid my hair when I fell asleep sobbing on the bunk. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass. The skyline blurred through my tears. The neon signs spelled out dreams I once chased: freedom, honor, service. Now they flickered with the question, at what cost? I reached for my phone and scrolled through old voice messages. "Happy birthday, big sis," from Brittany at 17. "Mom's apple pie is in the oven," from Catherine. "Can't wait to see you at prom," from my best friend back home. Each message was a time capsule, a reminder of moments I let slip away. Then I dialed a number I'd avoided: Olivia Grant, my lawyer advocate and friend. The phone rang twice and went to voicemail. I exhaled, voice rough. "Olivia, it's Ashley. I don't know what to do. I'm unraveling. Call me." I hit send and dropped the phone onto the bedspread, its screen lighting up like a beacon of hope in the darkness. My breathing slowed and I let my tears subside. I thought of the battered wine glass, the spilled red liquid, staining the tile like a battlefield. I realized that sometimes you have to break before you can rebuild. I stood and found towels in the linen closet. Carefully, I pressed them against the shards, soaking up the wine. I gathered the larger pieces of broken crystal in my palm and wrapped them in cloth, evidence of my failure. Yet fragments I could collect and study. Each shard reminded me that beauty and fragility often coexist. I finally turned away from the destruction and sat on the bathroom counter. The mirror reflected a woman with smudged mascara, her uniform unbuttoned at the top, hair escaping its chignon. I traced the lines on my face, each one a story of sacrifice, loss, and resilience. I whispered to my reflection, "I can't let this define me." I thought of the sunrise I'd witnessed on faraway bases, the promise of new light breaking through night's grip. I thought of the words my father used to say, "You can measure a life by the bridges you build, not the wars you fight." I had built so few bridges at home. The moonlight faded as dawn approached, but I felt something shift within me, a spark of resolve. I would heal, piece by piece, starting with this hotel room. I would pick up the telephone again and call Brittany. I would offer apology unfettered by rank. I would show up, not as Colonel Miller, but as Ashley, the sister they once knew. I gathered the towels, wiped the last of the wine from the floor, and returned the remaining shards to the closet. I smoothed my uniform, redusted the glass table, and paused by the window. The first sliver of sunrise painted the horizon a soft rose. In that quiet pale glow, I made an unspoken promise I would find a way back, even if it meant surrendering the armor I wore so well. And in that moment of vulnerability, I recognized that collapse is not the end, it's the prelude to transformation. I am Colonel Ashley Miller, and the morning after my breakdown, I woke with a hollow ache that no amount of discipline could soothe. The hotel's air conditioning hummed in the pre-dawn gloom of Bangkok, and I stared at the ceiling, mind racing. I knew I needed a spark, something to ignite resolve and pull me back from the brink. At 6:42 a.m. local time, my phone chimed. It was a text from Trevor Brooks, my oldest friend and comrade in arms. "Trevor, true strength lies in forgiveness. Call me when you can." His words felt like a lifeline. Trevor and his $8,000, 0 cents, emergency transfer, when I'd faced that scandal at Fort Bragg, had always been my anchor. I rolled out of bed, heart pounding with both gratitude and uncertainty. I showered, letting the hot water wash away the residue of shame. I texted Catherine and Jonathan, "Mom, Dad, I'm sending $5,000, 0 cents, today to cover the barn repairs in full. No more surprises." As I hit send, a wave of calm settled over me. For the first time in days, I wasn't thinking about lost deposits or whispered accusations that I was acting on conviction. I logged into my secure banking app and initiated a $5,000, 0 cents transfer to the Miller Family Reserve, noting barn restoration full payment. The confirmation pinged almost instantly. I printed the digital receipt and tucked it into my travel wallet, a tangible proof of my commitment. Next, I opened my laptop and drafted an email to Brittany. Subject, "Dear Sis. Dear Brittany, I owe you more than explanations, and I intend to give you both clarity and consistency. Today I've sent $5,000, 0 cents, to finish the barn repair. I'm ready to talk, listen, and rebuild. If you'll have me, I'd like to start with an honest conversation tomorrow. With love, Ashley." I hovered over send, then clicked. My heart thundered, but I felt lighter, as if a chamber valve had opened. At 11:15 a.m., I joined a video call with Olivia Grant, my trusted attorney and friend. Her face appeared in a neat frame, backlit by a law library's mahogany shelves. Olivia Ash, I'm so glad you called. I read Brittany's formal request to remove you from family accounts. We can draft a public statement or a formal letter of apology. But first, how are you holding up? I exhaled, admitting, honestly, roll. But I'm ready to make amends on their terms. Olivia nodded sympathetically. Let's keep it concise. Acknowledge your mistake. Outline corrective action, the $5,000 0 cents payment, and express your intent to communicate moving forward. Avoid legalese speak as Ashley, not Colonel Miller. We spent the next hour crafting a 2-paragraph statement. She helped me refine words like, I recognize instead of I acknowledge, I regret over I apologize, and closed with an invitation. I hope we can talk openly, as sisters. Armed with her guidance, I set the statement aside, planning to share it at the right moment. By early afternoon, I felt an itch for physical release. I rolled out my yoga mat on the suite's balcony, overlooking neon city lights. I moved through sun salutations, each breath deliberate, each stretch a step toward center. Afterwards, I dropped to the terrace's cool tile and completed 50 push-ups, my old ritual from basic training. Each rep felt like a small victory over inertia and doubt. As evening arrived, I found a quiet corner of the lobby lounge, lit by amber sconces. At 8:03 p.m., my email notification chimed. Brittany had replied. Brittany Ashley, thank you for the payment. I'm not ready to talk yet, but I appreciate your effort. Let's touch base Friday morning, Texas time. Reading her words, I felt hope, tentative but real. She hadn't closed the door entirely. I forwarded her reply to Olivia. She'll talk Friday. What's next? Within minutes, Olivia replied, draft a short personal note, no legal backing, requesting a one-on-one video chat. Show you're serious, and prepare to listen first. I nodded to myself. Professional protocol had its place. But here, vulnerability was the currency that mattered. That night, I journaled under the soft glow of my bedside lamp. I wrote, today, I stopped defending and started acting. I chose family over formality, forgiveness over defense. I remember who I am beyond the uniform. I closed my journal and set my alarm for 5:30 a.m. Texas time, just in case I needed to wake before Brittany on Friday. In that quiet moment, I realized the recovery spark wasn't a grand gesture, but a sequence of small ones. A friend's text, a timely fund transfer, an email of apology, a call for guidance, and a commitment to listen. Each step cracked the hardened shell I'd built around my heart. I drifted to sleep feeling, for the first time in days, that I was on the path back, not just to my family, but to myself. The mission ahead wasn't about strategy or survival. It was about rebuilding trust, one deliberate act of forgiveness at a time. I am Colonel Ashley Miller, and tonight I step forward, not as the decorated officer in uniform, but simply as Ashley, the sister who has come home to set things right. 2 nights after the betrayal in the ballroom, I sent out formal invitations to the very 70 guests who watched me publicly condemn our parents, family friends, bridesmaids and groomsmen, and everyone who shared in Brittany's big day. Each invitation was printed on heavy ivory cardstock, embossed in silver foil. Colonel Ashley Miller cordially invites you to a special presentation revealing the full story of the Miller Family Reserve Transfers Grand Pavilion at Chateau Royal, while 6:00 p.m. reception to follow. I allocated a budget of $25,000. 0 cents for this gathering venue rental, a celebratory champagne toast, professional AV equipment, and a light hors d'oeuvre menu averaging $45.00 per person. I enlisted Trevor Brooks, my oldest friend and crisis manager, to handle logistics. Within 48 hours, he secured a 100-inch LED screen, stage lighting that mimicked the dramatic ambiance of a high-stakes military briefing, and a sound system crisp enough to carry every whispered apology. As twilight settled, I arrived at the Grand Pavilion's draped entrance, wearing a simple black sheath dress. No medals, no rank insignia, just Ashley. The guests filed in, exchanging uncertain glances. I spotted Vanessa Hughes, our wedding's MC, now dressed in a tailored slate gray pantsuit, standing beside a podium. The rows of white Chiavari chairs faced the glowing screen, each chair bearing a small printed program detailing the evening's agenda. I stepped to the podium, heart pounding but voice steady. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me on such short notice. I called you here to share the facts behind the $20,000 transfer from the Miller Family Reserve, and to prove that transparency can heal wounds deeper than any apology alone." With a click of my remote, the LED screen came to life. Slide 1 displayed the original bank ledger entry in stark text. 28 May 2025 Mission Support, $20,000, 0 cents. The timestamp and transaction ID were clearly visible, evidence I had never intended to hide. Slide 2 switched to color-coded map showing our unit's position in Helmand Province, annotated with an urgent red circle marking a medical outpost under siege. Overlaid video clips played silently, medics setting up field hospitals, Afghan children receiving water purified because of that $20,000, 0 cents disbursement. Slide 3 listed the medical supplies delivered. 1,200 antibiotic kits, $9,600, 500 liters of potable water, $3,750, 0 cents. Emergency wound dressing kits, $5,200, 0 cents. Rapid response trauma packs, $1,450, 0 cents. Total $19,874, 0 cents. All procured within a 24-hour window. A hush settled. I paused for 2 heartbeats, letting the weight of those images sink in. Then I pressed next. Slide 4 showed my personal savings account statement. Funds earmarked for veterans' education grants balanced $25,000, 0 cents. To replace were scanned checks totaling $25,000, 0 cents. The very checks I used to replenish the family fund within 48 hours of the original transfer. Slide 5 featured a letter from Olivia Grant, our family attorney. All transactions were lawful, properly documented, and executed in the best interest of mission success. Colonel Miller demonstrated due diligence under exigent circumstances, the audience murmured. I recited, I rerouted funds because delaying those supplies could have cost lives. I made an instant decision to act, and I failed to communicate with the people I love most. At that moment, Trevor Brooks stepped onto the stage and placed a sealed USB drive on the podium. Inside this drive, he announced, are the original email requests from command, the internal medical unit memos, and the complete compliance report from our legal counsel. I handed the USB to Vanessa, who plugged it into the lectern's port. A file stripper window appeared on screen, listing folders operation_support_docs family_fund_ledger legal_review PFG. Vanessa clicked legal_review PFG, and the first paragraph scrolled into view on the screen. Review confirms all actions taken by Colonel Ashley Miller were authorized under emergency protocols. No violations of family or military trust occurred. I felt my chest tighten, not with fear, but with relief. I stepped away from the podium and walked down the aisle, barefoot to feel the cool marble, until I reached the front row where Brittany sat. I placed my hand gently on her shoulder. I did this to save lives, and with that same instinct, I want to save us. I hope this truth brings you clarity. Brittany's eyes glistened. Jonathan rose to his feet, tears in his voice as he said, "Ashley, I'm so sorry I questioned you." Catherine clasped my hand, whispering, "Thank you for showing us." Then Brandon Carter approached with a small cream envelope. "Colonel Miller," he began, voice unsteady, "on behalf of our family, please accept this." He handed me a signed check for $15,000, 0 cents, the remainder of the wedding fund that we had lost when the original deposit bounced. "Use it however you need," he said, his eyes earnest. I accepted the check and nodded. "Thank you, Brandon. More than anything, what I need now is your trust." Behind me, the guests broke into a soft, understanding applause. Some wiped away tears, others exchanged nods. In that moment, the tables truly turned. The narrative of betrayal flipped to one of courageous transparency. I reclaimed my name, not through force of rank or legal threat, but by opening every file, sharing every memo, and standing vulnerable before the people I loved. Trust, once fractured, began to mend with every act of honest disclosure. After the formal presentation, we moved to the champagne reception. The first glass billed at $60, 0 cents per flute, I hung in my hand and raised to Brittany. "To new beginnings," I toasted. She clinked her glass to mine, and the crowd joined, their smiles genuine. As the night deepened, laughter returned. I found Trevor in a corner and he gave me a quick thumbs up. Later, I watched Brittany sway gently to a soft jazz trio, a borrowed string section adding falsetto notes, and I realized that reconciliation often arrives in small moments, like shared music or a simple nod of forgiveness. By the time the last guest filed out just before midnight, the grand pavilion felt lighter, almost jubilant. My parents lingered to help me gather AV cables and empty wine bottles. As we locked up, Jonathan said, "I always knew you'd find a way to." I looked up at the moonlit sky, thinking of the nights I spent under foreign stars commanding missions, and I understood this was the most important mission of all, saving my family's faith in me. Tonight, I turned the tables not by demanding attention, but by offering truth, and in doing so, I unlocked the door to forgiveness, rebuilding bridges with every fact laid bare. The glow of the Elia screen may have faded, but the light of renewed trust now warms our family in ways no amount of military precision ever could. I am Colonel Ashley Miller, and between the peaks of my public reckonings and the valleys of private doubts, one person remained unwavering: Trevor Brooks. We met as slender cadets at West Point in 2007, trading late-night cups of burnt coffee and scholarship essays for salty critiques and shared camaraderie. When I shipped out on my first deployment to Fort Hood, Trevor walked me to the departing flight in December, pressing a folded $20 bill into my palm with a wry grin. "Spend it on something you'll learn from," he said. Years later, when a career-threatening scandal erupted at Fort Bragg in 2018, Trevor didn't hesitate. Within 8 hours, he'd wired me $8,000, 0 cents, to cover emergency legal fees, and coached me through a press conference script that ultimately saved my commission. He stayed on the phone with me for 48 hours straight, his steady voice cutting through headlines and doubt. During my lowest point in Bangkok, wine-stained suite floor, broken crystal, tears staining my uniform, it was Trevor's text that sparked my recovery. Trevor, true strength lies in forgiveness. I'm here. I called him at 2:15 a.m. His immediate response was, pack a bag, I'm booking a flight. 48 hours later, he was at my side, offering quiet counsel over milky Thai coffee in a late-night street stall. He listened without judgment as I confessed every fear of failure, of losing my family's trust, of never being enough beyond my rank. When I planned the special presentation at Chateau Royal, Trevor managed every logistical detail, securing the 100-inch LED screen, testing stage lighting, running audio checks. On stage, when I needed files or a reassuring glance, he was there. After the final slide vanished, and the room erupted in understanding applause, he slipped me a thumbs up, a gesture years of shared missions had distilled into 2 simple chords of trust. That night, as guests drifted into the Bangkok humidity, I found Trevor packing his laptop beside the podium. I slipped him an envelope containing a $3,000 0-cents check to fund his long-deferred legal studies in veteran advocacy. A dream he'd postponed to guide me. His throat caught as he murmured, "Ashley." I shook my head with a smile. "You saved lives, Trevor. Now let me invest in your future." He tucked the check into his wallet, clasped my arm, and said, "Always, Ash." Trevor Brooks embodies the power of loyalty and the human connections behind every medal and mission. His unwavering support reminds me that recovery is never a solo operation. It thrives on trust, compassion, and the hands that reach through darkness. I am Colonel Ashley Miller, and as the dust settled on my transparent presentation, the true reckoning began, not for me, but for those who cast doubt on my integrity. In the days that followed, Brittany and Brandon found themselves facing the fallout of their own choices. It started with Brittany, at the office of Carter and Miller Architects, the firm she co-founded with Brandon. She was summoned by clients who'd seen the leaked presentation slides. One partner, Mrs. Aline Rodriguez, confronted her in the lobby of their glass-walled boardroom. "Miss Miller, you build skyscrapers and community centers worth millions, yet you publicly questioned your own sister before verifying facts. How can we trust you with our $2,500,000 0-cents civic project?" The question hung heavy in the air. Brittany's customary confidence faltered, her voice shook as she apologized and promised to make things right. But the damage was done. Word spread quickly, prospective clients postponed bids, and within 72 hours, Carter and Miller's pipeline shrank by an estimated $3 million, 0 cents, in potential revenue. Brandon Carter fared worse. A former investment banker turned event planner, he'd prided himself on flawless execution until his impulsive public shaming of me backfired. His own firm's social media channels, which had highlighted the Miller-Carter union as the season's marquee wedding, suddenly brimmed with comments, "What arrogance, shameful," and even, "Is this bullying?" Within days, 4 major couples canceled bookings for 2026, citing concerns over professionalism. The projected revenue lost $150,000, 0 cents. Yet the true turning point came when Brittany and Brandon arranged a small private restoration ceremony to repair family trust. They rented a sunset veranda at the Miller Ranch, spending $10,000, 0 cents, on flowers, hors d'oeuvres, and a live acoustic guitarist. Under a canopy of string lights, they invited me to address lingering wounds. I arrived in a simple white sundress, no rank, no ceremony, ready to listen. Brittany took a deep breath. "Ashley, we thought we were protecting Mom and Dad from surprises. We see now how that backfired." Her eyes brimmed with tears. "Brandon and I want you to know, we trust you and we want to repair not just our finances, but our heart." She reached into her purse and handed me an embossed cream envelope. Brandon stepped forward, voice low. "Colonel Miller Ashley." "I'm sorry," he said. In the heat of wedding planning, I let rumors cloud my judgment. "I see now what you sacrificed." He handed me a check for $15,000, 0 cents, marked replenishment of Miller Family Reserve. Inside the envelope lay a handwritten letter. "Dear Ashley, I recognize the pain we caused by questioning you without listening. Please accept this token of goodwill and our promise to communicate first, assume best intentions, and build a new chapter together. Love always, Brittany and Brandon." I felt the warmth of genuine remorse wash over me. I accepted the check with a smile, tucking it into my sundress pocket. "Thank you," I said softly. "This means more than words can say." The guests' 20 close friends and family broke into gentle applause. In the weeks that followed, the ripple effects of their apologies reshaped our relationships. Carter and Miller Architects rebounded when Mrs. Rodriguez personally called Brittany to say, "Your humility and accountability demonstrate true leadership. We still want your bid." 2 new projects, totaling $1,200,000, 0 cents, were secured within a month. Meanwhile, Brandon's event planning firm saw a surge of referrals. Couples praised his grace under pressure and commitment to making amends. He even landed a $50,000, 0 cents engagement party contract after one client said, "I want someone who knows the value of respect." Back at home, Jonathan and Catherine hosted a celebratory barbecue on the ranch's newly repaired barn deck. They toasted marshmallows over a fire pit, and Catherine raised her glass of sweet tea to "Family stronger now because we faced our fractures." Jonathan clapped Brandon on the back, then he turned to me, eyes misty. "Ashley, you challenged us to do better. Thank you." That night, as fireflies danced above the fields, I walked with Brittany to the old wooden fence where we once sat as girls. She rested her head on my shoulder. "I'm proud of you, Ash," she whispered. "Not for your medals or rank, but for never giving up on us." I looked out over the fields where our childhood dreams had taken root. The cost of betrayal had been steep: lost contracts, bruised egos, shattered trust, but the price of restoration proved even more valuable. By owning our failures and demanding accountability, Brittany and Brandon had transformed from antagonists into allies. They had demonstrated that true strength lies in admitting mistakes, making restitution, and forging a bond tempered by honesty. In the end, the antagonist's downfall wasn't a grand spectacle of vengeance. It was the collapse of illusions, the realization that trust, once broken, must be rebuilt brick by brick. And as they acknowledged their errors, they paved the way for a future where our family reserve wasn't just a financial account, but a wellspring of mutual respect and unwavering support. I am Colonel Ashley Miller. And now, with bridges rebuilt and wounds healing, my final mission is to cement our family's unity and chart a path forward. A month after the veranda gathering at the ranch, we gathered once more, this time for a 2-day retreat in Napa Valley. The itinerary balanced relaxation, reflection, and shared purpose, all with a total budget of $20,000. 0 cents carefully allocated for lodging, meals, activities, and symbolic gestures. Day 1 arrival and airborne reflection. We landed at Charles M. Schultz at Anama County Airport in late morning, greeted by rolling vineyards under a flawless sky. Trevor Brooks, my steadfast ally, had arranged a private hot air balloon ride for 6 at dawn the next day, costing $4,500, 0 cents. But first, we checked into the River Farm Estate, a restored Victorian inn where each suite boasted vineyard views and plush amenities. The nightly rate was $850, 0 cents. and we booked 3 adjacent suites for communal gatherings and privacy. We convened at the estate's courtyard under a wisteria-draped arbor. Over a catered lunch of grilled salmon, $55.00 per plate, and artisanal salads, $35.00 per bottle. Clinton raised a toast, new beginnings, and to the sister who taught us the true meaning of courage. Glasses of local Chardonnay, $45.00 per bottle, clinked in unison. In that sun-dappled moment, I felt the warmth of genuine connection, no rank, no titles, just family. That afternoon, we embarked on a guided vineyard tour. Each of us received personalized tastings, complete with tasting notes and vineyard histories. We laughed as Brittany tried to discern subtle floral undertones, and I recounted childhood memories of our parents' homemade grape juice. At the tour's end, we posed for a family photo at the crest of a hill, golden vines stretching infinitely behind us, a physical metaphor for growth from roots. Day 2 sunrise, dialogue, and shared goals at 5:30 a.m. We met at the balloon launch site. I stood beside Brittany, Trevor, our parents, and Brandon as the crew inflated the vibrant envelope. As the basket lifted, the valley unfolded beneath us in pastel hues. The silent ascent mirrored our ascension from past grievances. Floating above the world untethered, yet together we shared silent contemplation. Before Trevor broke the quiet to trust, he said, raising a thermos of bubbly, sparkling apple juice. We toasted, the gentle clink of paper cups marking our renewed bond. Back on solid ground, we returned to the estate for a goal-setting workshop. With notebooks branded Miller Family Reserve, we drafted plans, repay any remaining shortfalls, fund Britain's nonprofit project for affordable housing, and establish a scholarship in our parents' names for local youth. We outlined a 12-month repayment schedule for the $50,000 I'd withdrawn and later replenished, agreeing to contribute monthly installments for the first few months, Jan-Mar $15,000 to the ranch account, April-June $20,000 toward estate improvements, OCDEC $5,000 to an emergency family fund. We signed the document in a ceremonial circle, each placing fingerprints under our signatures, a pledge more tactile than any contract. Reflection and shared insights that evening. Catherine led a casual dinner on the veranda, flanked by lanterns and the scent of lavender from nearby fields. Over pork tenderloin, $65 per plate, and seasonal vegetables, we shared personal reflections. Jonathan spoke first. I learned that love without communication is like a vineyard left untended. You have to water it every day. Brittany admitted, assuming the worst cost us years of closeness. Brandon added, professional pride can blind you to the most important relationships. I closed with, authority without empathy is hollow. I vow to lead with both mind and heart. Lessons in action. Before departing, we visited the local elementary school where Brittany's nonprofit planned to build art studios. We met students who presented her with hand-painted thank you cards. I slipped a $2,000 check into the school's donation box, matching my sister's commitment. She draped an arm around me and whispered, "We're better together." As we drove back to the airport, sun high overhead, I reflected on our journey from the fractured wedding ballroom to this moment of collective purpose. The numbers, timelines, and budgets we'd managed felt less like dry ledger entries and more like the architecture of trust. Each dollar allocated, each toast raised, each signature affixed, had reconstructed the foundation of our family. Closing the chapter on the flight home, I retrieved the family photo from Napa. Brittany and I stood side by side, arms around each other, smiling into the lens. I traced her face with my fingertip and thought, "Thank you for trusting me, again." By delivering transparency, taking accountability, and choosing vulnerability over arrogance, I learned that resolution isn't a destination but a process, one built on ongoing choices to communicate, forgive, and invest in relationships. As Colonel and as sister, I carry this lesson forward that the richest revenge is not retribution, but redemption through forgiveness. When we landed, my phone buzzed with a new notification, a donation of $1,000, 0 cents, to our family emergency fund from a friend who had witnessed our story online. It was a reminder that our reconciliation resonated beyond our circle, inspiring others to bridge their own divides. And so, I step off that plane, ready for whatever missions lie ahead, military, personal, or familial, with a heart fortified by love, honesty, and the unshakable knowledge that home is where trust grows deepest.